The Harvesters, painted by Dutch Renaissance painter Peter Bruegel the Elder. Bruegel is known for its paintings of landscapes and Flemish commoners. Many actually refer to him as Peasant Bruegel for his alleged practice of dressing up as a man peasant in order to fit in and mingle with them to gain inspiration and authentic details for painting. He painted the Harvesters in 1565. It is one of 6 panels. Like many other Renaissance artists, he painted it for wealthy art patron merchant. The series represents the seasons of the year: fall, late spring, early spring, the deep winter, the early summer, and then the late summer, which is what the Harvesters focuses on. Bruegel shows an entire landscape. He depicts the interplay of man and nature beautifully. He does a magnificent job of capturing myriad scenes in one painting. He represents the daily lives of men, women, as well as children. He also displays the whole process of harvesting. He doesn't solely portray the original or finished product. From men slashing down the wheat to women piling the stacks over their shoulders to deliver it to the ports, the wheat is moved out and traded. There is so much motion in the painting. The landscape is practically transforming in one still picture. In the left-hand corner, in fact, we can see a man in the tree. He's shaking branches in order for the apples to drop. As our eyes travel, we find kids collecting the fallen apples. We see the people producing and eating wheat as well. It is a self-contained cycle of production and consumption. The notion of the passage and cycle of time is predominant in the painting. We see every step of the wheat processed and every individual doing something different with their own time. In addition, this scene is one to be repeated in the future, but only lasts a certain time period, the 2 months of late summer. We see an ongoing cycle of production and distribution, as well as the cycle of the seasons. This is quite evident considering the limited color palette of earthly colors as well as the scene of harvesting. In other words, time is both fleeting and permanent. It isn't surprising that Bruegel painted harvesters considering the century he was living in. He depicted a banal scene. At the time, each village had a job of growing enough food to feed itself, as we can see in the foreground, a group of people eating, but also growing cash crops. They were working and trading for the nobles who owned the land. They weren't a self-sustaining community. Wheat at the time was the gold of the earth. The foundation of the Dutch economic expansion in the 16th century was indeed their agriculture. In the background, we can spot ships, which represents the blooming maritime trade and the rise of mercantilism. Moreover, the fact that the beginning of the Protestant Reformation was a rising issue of the time is noteworthy. Although all 3 estates are present in the frame, it is important to recognize that the nobles' castle and church are both hidden in the background. Bruegel chose not to deliberately depict the landscape through a religious lens as it had traditionally been interpreted. In that sense, this marks the movement of the Netherlandish painting away from Catholic religious iconography, just as the Netherlands was moving away from Catholicism as a whole. He keeps his main focus on the idlers, who weren't as influenced by religion anymore. Bruegel takes an anthropological view in his vast panorama of peasant life. His thin and delicate techniques derive from the Renaissance. His deep perspective is astonishing. As you see, the landscape recedes into the background and connects to the foreground. He paints graphic matches. The cut of the field forms a curve, like a circle, and the piles of the wheat on the ground form symmetrical squares. There's a lot of realism. Each individual is painted so precisely. Individualism, the belief in the value and worth of each person. Everybody is doing something different and all have their own unique purpose and expressions. Each person could be analyzed and studied differently. Personally, I fell in love with the painting the first minute I glanced at it. Each person has such a different story and is painted with such great detail. I couldn't take my eyes away from the man popping out of the hay, of the path with the red bucket. He just gives like a pop of color to kilometers of field. He seems worn out and tired, and all of the other women who are behind him in the path seem like they've been walking for hours. If you look in the background, there's the pool, and there's someone jumping in, someone dipping in his feet, someone fully nude. The detail is really amazing. On the other hand, I did spend a lot of time just staring at the painting, trying to figure out Bruegel's point of view, more specifically his view on the peasants. I wasn't sure if he was mocking them, caricaturing them for being miserable, celebrating a beautiful pastoral moment, honestly. Either way, there's no doubt that this painting captures about 200 pages worth of historical textbooks on the Dutch lifestyle and economy in the 16th century. There's so much going on, and one can definitely spend hours in front of this masterpiece.